It is now 1:30. The regular meeting of the City Planning and Zoning Board is March 19th, Thursday. And we'll start off with preliminary matters, agenda additions and deletions from the board or staff.
Staff has none, Mr. Chairman.
That was a serious discussion.
I am very serious today, yes.
Okay. We'd now like to open the meeting up for public comment. If you're here today with one of the agenda items, you can choose to speak now on it up front, or you can wait till that particular item comes before us and you can have this opportunity to speak then also. So if you'd like to come forward now and speak before they make their presentations and etc., feel free to do so. Seeing nobody coming forward, then I'm going to close the public comment. The first item we have today then is an ordinance of the city of, Chairman shall read the case title. All right. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida requested. I was off last meeting. I need a break. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida requested by IGA Development LLC, amending the official zoning map by changing the zoning district designation of POI, professional office and institutional, to CI, highway-oriented commercial, for property located at 833 20th Street, containing 0.88 acre, more or less, providing for an effective date, and its number Z1500001.
You missed a zero.
And 10, okay, extra zero. It's got to replace me. Disclosure by the Planning and Zoning Board members for any ex parte communication. Is there any?
None.
There's none. Swearing in of the applicants and the staff and all witnesses collectively by the city clerk. Sherry?
Anybody that's going to testify, if you just stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Is there any exhibits by the city clerk? All exhibits should be up to us. No? Okay. Staff opening. Gail, you're going to handle this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The applicant is proposing to utilize a vacant building adjacent to this site at 815 20th Street as a restaurant, and is requesting the zoning map change to accommodate the construction of parking and infrastructure to serve the existing building, and to allow construction of improvements that are not allowed in the POI zoning district, such as retail. And you can see on the map, the subject property is on the, it's on 20th Street, west of US Highway 1 and east of 9th Avenue. And the subject property contains 0.88 of an acre of land. The property is currently vacant, and it is zoned POI. The existing land uses in the vicinity include a mix of office, retail, and other commercial uses, and also some vacant land. Across the street is zone C1, which includes office and vacant land. To the east, it's also zone C1, which has a vacant building and then the parking lot for a McDonald's restaurant. And to the south, the property is zoned mixed use, and there's two vacant parcels to the south. And the west is POI, which includes office and vacant land. And the future land use pattern, the subject property and properties to the west are designated mixed use, which allows the use of residential and commercial uses, and properties to the north and the east are designated C, commercial, which allows a mixture of highway-oriented commercial. And the site is not environmentally significant or sensitive. It's in flood zone X. There's current capacity for the city's water and sewer for the subject property, and the transportation system. The parcel abuts State Road 60, which is a urban principal arterial on the future roadway classification map. And also, it's approximately 275 feet west of US Highway 1, which is also an urban principal arterial. And the zoning differences, we have listed in your memo the differences between the POI and the commercial C1. And basically, the C1 will allow retail, restaurant, hotel, and motel, whereas the POI will not. And we've reviewed the proposed zoning map changed based on the standards, considering amendments as required in Chapter 65, Article 3 of the Land Development Regulations, and Section 65.22 I1 and 5 set the review standards for amendments for the zoning map. And the justification for the proposed amendment, as mentioned before, the applicant is looking to purchase both parcels and put a restaurant into the vacant building and use this parcel as parking and future uses that are allowed in the C1 zoning district. And there are no changes in circumstances concerning this property or neighborhood that are driving the request. In fact, the future land use designation for this property allows a mixture of residential and commercial uses, and the change from POI to C1 is consistent with the future land use designation and the neighborhood's commercial character, since the subject property is surrounded on two sides by the C1 zoning district. And the rezoning was reviewed for consistency with all applicable plan goals, policies, and objectives with the comprehensive plan. And we looked at 1.9 of the land use element, which states that the mixed-use land use designation shall be applied to those areas that are suitable for urban scale development and intensities. And it allows for a mixture of residential and commercial, and we find that the proposed rezoning is consistent with 1.9 due to the following conditions. And the subject property is adjacent to State Road 60, an urban arterial roadway, and near a high access point, US Highway 1. Additionally, the rezoning is found to be consistent with 1.9 since the future land use designation of the subject property is mixed use, which allows a mixture of commercial uses such as those proposed in the C1 zoning district. The stated purpose of the C1 zoning district is to provide adequate space in appropriate and highly accessible locations suitable for accommodating various levels of commercial development. As stated above, we find that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we find that the proposed change in zoning is consistent with the land development regulations and zoning standards. And with the compatibility with the surrounding areas, as mentioned before, you've got the commercial uses around the property, and we find that it is consistent and compatible with the surrounding area. And looking at the maintenance of level of service, this is just looked at in general terms. The specific requirements will be reviewed when we do a site plan for the, if it is approved for this site. And we find that there is available capacity exists to support future demand from development of the property for any C1 allowable use on public facilities such as water and sewer, solid waste, and stormwater. And the proposed zoning C1 does not allow any residential uses, so it will not have an impact on school facilities. And included in the packet is the applicant's application with their they had looked at 3 different uses of land, And that was based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation rates. And we looked at it and we saw that the most intense use in the current zoning would be a drive-in bank with an estimated daily trip of 900, and the most intense in the C1 would be a fast food restaurant with an estimated daily trips of 1,500. And we revised this a little from the applicant's proposal based on further review of the subject parcel. State Road 60, the eastbound, has a level of service C in 2013. The projected 2035 conditions will be also at a level of service C, and the projected average daily trips with the proposed C1 zoning should also maintain the level of service of C. The subject property change to C1 zoning will maintain orderly and logical development pattern as described above, and we find that the change in zoning is found to be consistent with the public interest and intent of the land development regulations. And staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend that the City Council approve the request to change the zoning designation of the subject property from professional office and institutional to highway C1, highway-oriented commercial.
Any questions right now of staff?
I have a question on the traffic load. What is the level of traffic load that would move this from a C to a D in terms of traffic load? Do you have any idea? I mean, how close are we?
I have to pull the manual. They're not close.
Okay.
There's plenty of
Right.
there's plenty of room in there.
And one of our long-term objectives is to remove a lane from eastbound State Route 60 for traffic calming. Would that have any impact?
No, we looked at that. That
Okay.
would be fine.
That would be fine? Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And remember, this is concurrency, so they've got to come in with a site plan, and we're going to have a much more detailed look at it. They aren't vested for anything yet until they pull a building permit, and to do that, they have to go through a site planning process, and the county will be going through a real detailed look at their numbers. So this is what it is. That these are general numbers that they can meet. I mean, if it were way out of scale, then that would be a red flag.
Okay, so this is worst-case scenario you're putting forward,
Right.
and it still will not exceed our classification
Right,
of road.
and until they submit a site plan, then that's when you get into the real details.
Okay.
I have a question also. It's along the same lines. The projection for 2030 keeps it at a level of C. With the projected development along this route, does this change at all?
No, that's we took the numbers off the 2035 MPO transportation plan, and that takes into account future development.
And this,
They're okay.
okay.
Yes, but again, this is just this is really a course to look at it
Sure.
to make sure you're in the ballpark. They'll be much more detailed when they have to come through site plan review.
Just a short question. What was in that vacant building? Does anyone know?
It went through site plan approval, and it was never occupied.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he even got a final CO.
I don't think so.
Because it wasn't, you could not occupy the interior of that building.
What was it at one point, though? Was that
It
like
was-
the old
it was a new
Denny's?
building.
Oh, okay.
It was-
Gotcha.
Never
I'm
occupied.
trying to familiar.
Yeah, I
See
think it
where
was
it
going
is.
to be something like a salon, something to that
Okay.
effect.
It was never occupied, is that correct?
Never occupied.
Right, it never had a CO, so I believe the interior wasn't finished.
I understand.
And we have a lot of references to infrastructure. Now, is that qualified in any way? Do we know any more about infrastructure that they're talking about?
No, infrastructure is pretty well. It's all stayed. Stormwater's in there, roads are in there. I mean, the thing about most development in the
Okay.
city, other than maybe some road systems, we've got capacity for most improvements
Okay.
that on the amount of land we have available.
Okay.
Any additional question? Would the applicant like to come forward and make your presentation? Please please state your name and you were sworn, I believe I saw you standing there.
Yes, sir. My name's Wesley Mills. I'm with Mills Short and Associates. We're located at 800 8th Street, Vero Beach, Florida. Other than just if there's any questions from you guys that we could answer, we're representing the applicant as far as the engineering consultant for any future projects. Be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Questions of the applicant?
That's very thorough.
I think it's pretty well completed in my mind, too.
Yeah, I think the staff did your job for you.
We now need to open it up for public comment, I believe. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this, for or against, or insight for us? Seeing none? I don't think there's too much of a rebuttal or anything. So.
The only concern I had was, because I use that road all the time, anyone leaving the City Hall and driving east is going to be going that way. It just concerns me at the amount of traffic that's on the road, and you've got people just swapping lanes all over.
Oh, but there's plenty of capacity. That's one reason was that we had the feasibility study on reduction in lanes was so easy. We still have a lot of capacity. Mm-hmm. So things may change, but that's why they do the long-range planning process with a modeling. Mm-hmm. And they've updated it, so we're a little more sophisticated now. And in fact, we're involved in a 2040, updated that with the Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Right. And that's all coming into site plan anyway, so that's...
No further discussion? Looking for a motion?
I move.
I'll second it.
We have a motion that we accept the application, grant the application. And we have a second also.
We have to recommend. We recommend to the City Council to approve the request.
We approve
That's
the
motion.
request. Yeah.
We take a roll.
We have to have a voice. We have to have a roll call.
Mrs. Hillman? Yes. Ms. Polinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Croteau?
Yes.
Mrs. Manous?
Yes.
Mr. Laufer?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Okay.
Thank you. The second the second one is a conditional use and site plan application submitted by Vero Beach Church of Christ, Inc. to remove existing home and carport parking lot and construct a new parking lot, pavilion, and wall at the north side of SR 60 between 32nd and 33rd Avenues, number SP 14000010. And Gail, you're going to give this presentation also?
I am.
Okay.
We need a disclosure
Is there
of
any
ex parte.
Is there any ex parte information from the members of the board?
None here.
None? Seeing none? Swearing in of the applicants. All that's going to speak, please stand and be sworn in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Now I think we're ready for you, Gail.
Okay. This site is designated residential medium and residential low in the comprehensive land use plan, and the zoning classifications are professional office and institutional, and also R1 single family residential. And a place of worship is permitted in the professional office and institutional zoning district, and it is a conditional use in the R1 single family zoning district. And the project meets the definition of a major and also a conditional site plan review and requires planning and zoning board approval. On September 24th, 2014, they had their neighborhood meeting. There were only the people involved with the project there. And the majority of the site, as you can see in the review, is zoned POI, and there's a small portion of the site that is zoned R1 single family, thereby requiring conditional use approval.
Is that?
It's the northeast corner of the site is the R1.
Okay.
And the proposed parking lot and pavilion conform to the requirements of the zoning ordinance, except as noted. And with the site plan evaluation, section 64.10 requires that all site plans shall meet certain guidelines. And of these standards, the two most important to this project are the performance standards for the proposed use, design, and layout of the development and the project's compliance with all pertinent provisions of the land development regulations. And in regards with section 64.10A6, that's the compliance with land development regulations, all the various city departments reviewed it. And we have attachment A, which shows how the project has met the guidelines. And it meets all of the requirements. There's two small modifications that need to be done in the R1 zoning because of it being a conditional use, which requires a 20-foot wide landscape strip, and the shrubs, instead of being 24 inches tall, have to be 6 feet tall. And we are also requiring that prior to the installation of the trees, that they're going to have to provide a revised landscape plan. There's a little mitigation that's required with the tree removal. And we find that it is compliant with all the provisions of the land development regulations, except for those conditions that I just mentioned to you. And with the site design performance and standards, the proposed project will remove an existing grass parking lot and increase the provided parking on the church. The total campus had 120 parking spaces according to site plan 87-SP693C, and it's going to be providing a total of 195 for the whole campus, the church campus. And that's going to bring the site current with today's parking ratios. The old previous parking ratios were, I believe it was 534 seats, and they had to have 5, and now it's to 3.
Okay,
So,
I understand that. Yep.
And the design and the layout of the driveways, parking creates no safety hazards and will not have an adverse impact on any adjacent properties, and we find that it's compliant with the standards of section 64.10B. And then, in order to grant conditional use approval, it must satisfy sections 61.04 and 61.05B. And the 61.04 is pertains to all conditional uses, and it is it states that the Planning and Zoning Board needs to be approve the plan so that no use is designed, located to be a conflict with health, safety, and welfare. And we find, let's see, and if in the judgment of the Planning and Zoning Board, that it is going to create traffic, noise, odor, it shall not be approved. And also, if based on the evidence presented, if the scale is supposedly inconsistent with the existing area, it shall not also be approved. And that you have to look at the scale, which there is not a building, open space, and number of parking provided. Staff finds that the site plan is compliant with the performance standards of section 61.04, as the proposed parking lot pavilion will not have a negative impact on the neighborhood stability or abutting properties. The church has had an existing parking lot on the southern portion of this site for many years, and the proposed parking will not result in unreasonable or disruptive impacts on adjacent properties. And then section 61.05 has to do specifically B with places of worship. And as you see in your review, it states that Minimum site for places of worship shall be 5 acres, provided, however, that this restriction shall not apply to existing places of worship, and this church has been there for many, many years. And number 2, no main or accessory building or outside activity shall be located within 25 feet of any side or rear lot line, and there will be no building or activity areas proposed in the R1 zoning district portion of the site. And number 3, accessory uses for places of worship may be located on other than the same lot as a principal use if the accessory use is on an abutting lot or a lot that would be abutting the lot with principal use, except that it is separated from the use of a right-of-way. And the proposed improvements to the existing parking lot are connected to the parking lot, and it's separated by a right-of-way, 33rd Avenue. And the recommendations, staff is recommending approval of the site plan and the conditional use subject to the following, the conditions listed in the memo.
Questions of staff?
I have a question. I'm assuming that the R1 site is the little square that is on the northeast,
That's
that
correct.
separate square, and that is a dry retention area that's been depicted there,
That's, and some parking.
and a few 9 parking spaces. Yes, I can see that. I had a question. Your presentation said there'll be some removal of trees,
That's correct.
and they'll be planting other trees, I presume.
They are putting trees that are required for the lands, for the site plan review, and then there'll also be mitigation for some trees that are removed.
In addition to the
In
site
addition
plan.
to.
Yeah, has there been consideration for transplanting the trees instead of removing them?
Most of the trees, I think, are like laurel oaks that are going to be removed, and it would be, they're probably older and be better to.
Declining condition?
In declining condition, or
Some are definitely in declining conditions, but I think with moving laurel oaks, it's just not practical.
Okay,
They're dying fast.
yeah,
Like,
that'd be replaced with live oaks.
They have to be, the code requires that they be a tree that's approved by the Florida Urban Forestry Council. We have a list that's available in our office.
Very good.
What is the purpose for the open-air pavilion? How is that going to be used?
The applicant is here. They could address that.
Is the sidewalk going to go around 3 sides? I had a hard time looking at this map trying to understand it. I see a proposed, 4-foot sidewalk on the, was that would be the west side?
That's that's
The west side of the map? I can't tell if it goes around 3
There's a
sides.
sidewalk up
Right.
here.
I think it does.
So they have a sidewalk here.
Is that correct?
But that's all right away.
Is there an
like there'll
existing
be-
sidewalk there now? Is there an existing sidewalk there now?
There is,
Well, let
I believe on the west side, it's a proposed, but
The dash, it looks like it's dashed that it's existing. I don't see a tag.
There's a sidewalk there, and then there's a sidewalk here.
so it'll
Yeah.
have sidewalks all around.
3 sides.
3 sides,
Yeah.
great. And I just see, and there's only 2 handicap spaces, is that correct? That's all I could identify here.
Let's see.
It should be in this. Should be up here.
Yes. There's just two.
I'm sure there's a formula for figuring
Yes,
that
there
out.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have one for a couple of questions for clarification. It looks like there's two stormwater management ponds there. I believe, are they both dry? Do you know, Tim? Or
I believe they are
They're
dry.
both dry
Yeah.
ponds?
They're dry retention.
And that's in the larger of the two. That's in the residential area.
That's in the R1. Yes.
Okay, and so the buffer, where the buffer is between the residential area and the smaller stormwater management plant, is there a residential home in there? I don't know. Is it?
Well, the buffer there is less than the buffer that's required for the conditional use. Remember, it's an odd. We got a project here. The conditional use part of it is only that small part.
Okay.
Though obviously it's integral to the whole plan because they've got a dry retention area that they're going to need for all this parking area,
Okay.
Impervious surface.
All right. And am I correct that you had so there is residential to the right, to the north, I guess, of the project, and nobody showed up. There was no question. No homeowners had any concerns or their meeting. They'll have a chance. If you are, sir, we'll have a chance to speak. I just was checking because my note says nobody showed up for it.
There was no one in attendance.
Nobody showed up. Okay. Do you any questions of staff now?
I'll have a question for the applicant when he gets up here. Yes.
Okay, too.
Yeah, on the approving a conditional use, does that run with the land once it's done?
Yes.
Okay. No more questions?
If there's no additional questions for staff, we'll ask the applicant if you'd like to come forward. And you have been sworn in, sir?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name. Okay.
Excuse me. Jeff Barquette with Schulke, Biddle, and Stoddard, 1717 Indian River Boulevard. I'm here with Mr. Brackett, also of the church, so hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions. To clarify a couple things that everybody set up here, that's correct. 3 trees have to come out. They're dead and dying, and they are laurel oaks. And I believe, Mr. Brackett and I were just speaking, I believe the mitigation trees, we will replant live oaks everywhere. And I forget the amount, but a handful of them. The open air pavilion, it's open air, just for church members to go out there, sit, relax, maybe for children to play. That's about it. And it's phase 2, so it's not even being built up front with all the improvements you see here. I think one other one had to do with the retention areas. They are both dry retention areas, vary in depth from 1.5 to 2.5 feet deep. And the conditional use portion of the property, actually the church owns all of the land around the big retention area,
north?
with the exception, the north and the west,
Okay.
with the exception of 50 feet to the west, where there is a single-family residence.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I'm sure I missed something, so if I can help answer
So you're
any
buffering
questions.
yourself, actually, is what you're meant to. You're buffering
Unfortunately.
yourself. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, we're requiring him to.
Or you're requiring him to.
I have a question on the pavilion.
Yes, sir.
Why? Just curiosity. Why you've located an open air pavilion for people to relax right next to a major highway?
Yeah, I had that same question of the
So did
owners, but we're saving several big oak trees in that area.
Good. Okay.
So it is a nice shaded area, and it's tucked in there. But I agree, it's a little odd where it is.
That's the same thing.
There's a wall behind it.
Yes, ma'am.
To the south.
But still, it's
With the exception of gaps where existing trees are.
Okay.
My question has to do with the neighborhood meeting and this list of names that are compiled. Where did that list come from?
The Indian River County Tax website,
Okay.
and confirmed with the city, and then all the envelopes are sent out by us personally.
Okay.
And I was the one that was there before, during, and after the meeting hours, and nobody was there. Nobody
Well,
showed up.
I know what that's like, but I'm confused because some of these addresses are on 43rd Street, Cache K, why would they be included? And I do know personally several friends who live on 34th their addresses are not even here.
I can't. Oh,
I can answer it.
Okay.
The property owners, that's why they're all over. If you're just a tenant, you're not going to get a letter. It's the property owners. It's probably their property owner addresses. I'm sure that's what it is.
Well, I know for one, in particular that she was not, and she is a property owner.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we can't
No.
guarantee. I mean, there's two. You have the neighborhood meeting, which they do,
Right.
and then we sent out the site plan thing. She didn't get one for the site plan one either?
No.
And it's within a certain distance, too.
It's 500 feet, so whether
Okay.
it...
Sorry, I can't answer specifically on that one.
Okay.
But I just have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
And it probably has to do with money. But did you consider exfiltration and doing some?
We did. Actually, I know it's real small on you guys' sheets, but in between, see the last column of parking to the north? There is an exfiltration trench along that entire area.
Okay.
And we needed all of it to meet all the rules. So there is some, yes, ma'am. And you're right, it is incredibly more expensive than dry retention.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I have any more questions. We'd like to open up to the public now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody
Thank
would
you.
like to speak from the public, please come forward. Sir, have you been sworn in? Please come up and we'll swear you in at that time.
You'll please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Give us your name and your address.
My name's Steve Roth, and if I got this location right, I think I own the house right next door to this big empty building that's been there for many years. It's a residential home. My address is 2036 32nd Avenue. So if it's on the north side of Route 60, I was just curious if it's going to affect my house. Is that my house going to have to be moved or gone, or? It's my only question.
I don't understand that, to tell you the truth.
Do you live next door to the?
That big empty building that's right there on the.
There's aren't there two buildings? CARE has a building there, and
It just depends on if that's the location where I think it might be. Is that right off of 32nd Avenue?
you know where the church is located?
Yeah, that's across
And-
the street from.
Right, and then just on the other side of
Yeah, to the
on
east.
State Road 60, the same side as the church, there's an area that has been used for parking forever. Under those trees.
I think that's right next to my house. If I
Are
got
you,
the location
so are you
right.
south of that then? Or,
Well,
I'm sorry, east of that?
north of Route 60 on 32nd Avenue, right next to that big building on the corner.
Are you on the south?
Which
Are you on the
big
east or
building are
west
you
side?
referring to?
Are you on the east or west side of 32nd Avenue?
I'm on the east side.
East side. This won't affect you.
Oh, won't affect it at all. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Make sure we're right with that. I mean,
He's on the east side of 32nd Street, which means he's down here. Yeah, this is all on the west side of. It's all the west side of 32nd. Yeah.
That's all I needed.
thank you. Any additional? Come forward, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Walls. I reside at 2132nd
Have you been
Avenue.
sworn in?
I have not, sir.
Oh, please do that.
You'll raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Give me your name again. I didn't.
Joseph Walls, W-A-L-L-S. And for the record, I reside again at 2132nd Avenue. Please pardon me for not attending, but I've been deployed out of the country serving the United States Navy for the last year. So I wasn't able to attend, so I have no idea what's going on with all of this. My primary concerns are severalfold, but first and foremost is my home is there. That's where I live. That's where I stay. I've looked at this church for 20 years now. New rumblings were going on about parking issues, drainage, revamping, bulldozing houses. I get it. I understand it. My concern is looking out my front window. What am I going to be looking at? Am I going to be looking at a wall? Am I going to be looking at cars parked all over the place? Am I going to be worried about at night when the kids go into that parking lot and play around and they're on the pavilion raising Cain all night long? Because we do have kids in that neighborhood and they will seek those things out. The one property located right at the corner of the building that's never been used is a very popular skateboard hangout for the kids. Those are my concerns. Now, if the board concerns themselves with those concerns and they regulate accordingly, I have no problem with it. It is what it is. And I'm only one person, obviously showing up for a little late to the party, but showing up anyway. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
One of the comments I'd like to just make to you, this board in particular, I don't think has any control once we approve or disapprove. That comes into different areas of the city to control
What's
that.
this
So if there's a problem, you'd have to get with the appropriate people to take care of that. As far as whether this gets to exist or not, that's what we're here for right now. And our decision, I think, will be mostly made on, does it meet the criteria that's set forth to be able to do this? And if it does, we have pretty much have to follow that guideline. And we from some reasonable objection, we can't. So your concerns, I think, may be futuristic concerns, and I can understand those. So at that point in time, I don't know what else I could say to you to give you more confidence. Maybe somebody else has some other answer for you, but I think that's the way I could best respond to you.
I'm hoping that maybe I could soothe you a little bit. I live directly across from the community church, and I dealt with that for quite a while, and the church grew and the parking lot grew. However, the community church has signs all over its property that states there is no skateboarding, no roller skating, no playing, even with the basketball courts. And our neighbors know that if this does occur, we do call the police department and they stop it right away. If it is posted and posted correctly and big enough, the children, and I have a lot of children in my neighborhood too, they know that they're not allowed to do this. And the neighborhood makes sure that their children adhere to that. So I'm hoping that this church will take a little advice and maybe post something to the same effect that the children are not. There is a risk, an insurance risk for the church, and it goes on, but we have not had any problems with that. And again, if it does occur, the neighbors do call the police and we get instant gratification. So the children have learned that they can't do that, that it's not going to be allowed in the neighborhood. And I hope that kind of helps you a little bit. And I do live directly across the street from the community church. So,
Understood.
Yeah.
And we all know what happens with signs.
Joseph, I can. One of the things I can tell you, I have a property right near the community church also, and that property, my best neighbor is the community church parking lot.
Yeah.
It really is. They're very quiet. I mean, we have, they're not there. They don't. So in some ways, and it's green. And they maintain it better than myself. Than I maintain my own property. So I'm positive about that. I think it's a positive influence on my particular property.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen any of the layouts. I can't even figure out where my house lays on this, where the wall is going to be. Okay. Is it going to be directly across the street from me? Is it only going to be on State Road 60? I don't know. Those are my voiced concerns. And I just wanted to make sure that I did come and speak up and say, hey, look, I have property values to deal with. When I go to sell this house in 5 years, am I going to be able to sell it because I've got this big wall right in front of me that people are going to want to look at? No. I've got gorgeous trees and sunsets that happen in my front window. And those are my concerns. So that was all I wanted to do, is make sure that my concerns were voiced and heard, that, as long as we can meet those kinds of things and everybody's copacetic and gets along, then we're fine with it. But when we start to impinge upon my property values and things like that, then I have a problem with it.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
I'd like to assure you that the city has very fine landscaping codes, very fine, and you're not going to be looking at a hideous blank wall. And I think that the staff is very amenable for you to come and discuss what exactly you are going to be looking at. You shouldn't worry about it.
We have the plans available to look at, and the wall is just along State Road 60.
Only on 60.
Yeah, it's going to be a 6-foot high land. No.
5.
On the POI part. I mean, the R1 part will be a 6-foot high edge. I'm not certain where your house is. That's why I'm.
Yeah, I want to say it's kind of towards that retention pond, but I'm not exactly.
Okay.
Are you on?
2100, but it's not across the way. On that
you're
weird
further
2084,
north.
2094 is right.
You're
across.
32nd Avenue,
Correct.
and we don't have what.
You're one block in, right?
I think you're a block.
Are you on the east or the west side of?
I am on the east side.
Okay, then there won't be any wall there. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And one thing that we have been always very concerned with here is preserving these beautiful old trees. And they're going to be doing, we heard them speak before, they're going to do as much as they can.
Anybody else from the public like to speak? Please come forward, sir.
My name's Bob Rigsby. I live at 2115 33rd Avenue in the general area.
Have you been sworn in, sir?
No, sir.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
I have never seen this plan before. And like the young lady said, I wasn't, no meeting called or anything. I guess, I don't know if I'm within the 500 feet. This is first I got this letter here. The dirt road that's north, that divides, that runs between there, how close is the retention pond on that dirt road? It's on the north side of the property?
Another 200 or 300.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a house in there, I believe the church don't own. Okay. Is all this north of that house?
Sir, you'll need to come up to the mic to respond.
Sure. Jeff Marquette again. I'm not sure exactly where you're talking, but if you see the lines that outline that, that's to the north. So the retention area is 200.
I can't see that very good. I'm old. My eyesight is not very good.
There's nothing north of that dirt road. Everything else is 200 feet to the south of that dirt road.
All right. We're south of the dirt road.
Yes, sir.
All right. There's a blue house in there right now that's unoccupied.
Okay.
Do you guys own that house?
No, sir.
No. So everything we're talking about, sorry, excuse me here. I live in the neighborhood, lived there 40 years, so I know what. All right. I know Mr. Brackens. All right, the house.
Sir, if you could speak into the microphone.
Could you address us, sir?
Right, sir?
Bob, you'll have to speak into the microphone too.
Okay.
We
Would
can't
it be
hear you.
help? Is there an aerial that we could be referring to at all? Anybody?
Well, I have to call it up, but
Oh, okay.
I don't think he's
There's a
close.
blue
No,
house.
okay. I just don't know where
Let's-
the dirt
let's
road is.
before-
I'm confused about the dirt road.
They're going to see if they
Vacant lot in there,
Okay.
which I believe you guys own.
Sir, if you guys could speak into the microphone. Mr. Brackett,
Dirt road.
if you could speak into the microphone.
pull it down so we
Thank
can
you.
hear you.
I'm not sure where he's referring to exactly.
got
There is a
pencil-
dirt road which is 21st.
21st.
Okay.
And just north of it, there's a vacant lot, which I believe you guys own. There was a house there that was tore down.
We don't own anything north of 21st.
Excuse me, my fault. South of
Okay.
21st. South of 21st. There's a big tree sits there on the corner.
Okay, you're at the corner of 33rd, I believe, and
And
21st. This is on the other side.
On the other side,
Right, there's a house there.
there's a vacant lot south
Right,
of the road,
okay,
and then there's a blue house.
right,
Do you guys own that blue house?
yes.
You guys own that house. It's at one of the houses that's coming down.
It's empty. No, you're on the wrong side of the block.
Yeah.
You have to come on the other side of 32nd to 33rd Avenue,
Okay.
between that block. Get to the east side of that block. Everything we're going to do on that side it will face on 32nd Avenue, not 33rd Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I understand that. But when I'm trying to situate here, where I'm located here on 33rd,
Mm-hmm.
you got 21st, and catty corner from there, you got that vacant lot in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's that blue house that was there, and then there's the other two houses that's further up, closer to your parking lot you got now on 60.
But you're still on the west side of 33rd Avenue. I mean, on the east side of 33rd Avenue is where you're coming down, not on 32nd Avenue.
No, I'm not on 32nd. I'm on 30.
Bob, let me ask this question. What is your particular objection, or what do you want us to hear from you?
I'm just want to know, I'm just trying to picture the general layout of the area, what they're doing. You know, we're talking on the
Well, you know where the parking lot is now.
parking lot is now,
Okay, the only thing we're doing is extending that just a little further north on 32nd Avenue and a little further north on 32nd Avenue side. We're just extending it a little north. It'll be improved where it is now and made a little bigger.
All right, you got the two houses that sit there now.
Mhm.
That's just north of your
Right.
parking lot you got now.
Right.
people live in those two houses right now. Those are the two that's coming down.
No, they're staying there.
They're staying there. Those two houses are staying there.
We're not disturbing any of those houses.
On
32nd, 33rd Avenue.
You're not disturbing none of the ones on 33rd?
No.
Okay. That's my main concern. And then my other concern was what this gentleman says is the pavilion.
Pavilion is only going to be mainly for aesthetics. It's going to be very small, probably house big enough for a picnic table in it. That's it. Just for a place for somebody to sit down and relax if they want to. There's a group of trees there that we don't want to take out. We think they should stay. We can't park there really because it's not conducive to parking with the trees there. So it's really aesthetics. Really not going to be an eyesore for anybody. It's would be something you might see over at Riverside Park, one only smaller than those over there.
Jeff, we haven't seen that. Or there's no plan on that. There's no building plan on that.
No.
Okay, well, that was my concern. I was totally lost in the area.
I understand,
because,
Bob.
like I said, I haven't seen what the plan called for. But all you guys are doing right now is just expanding the parking lot you got.
Yeah, the thing that you're going to like about what we're doing is going to be a lot cleaner. We're going to take down 2 old buildings that are eyesores. They're
already in the.
They're on the 32nd Avenue side. Okay.
Okay.
Those are all going to come down, and that's going to be made into parking and retention pond.
Okay.
You know, it looks like it's well landscaped.
For now.
For now.
Thank you.
Mr. Brackett, Mr. Brackett, were you sworn in?
Yeah.
Were you sworn in originally?
Yes, I was.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else additionally from the public like to speak? Seeing nobody else come forward, I will now close public comment. Additional questions of either the applicant or staff? And I'm looking for a recommendation.
I move we recommend staff's approval.
Including the 7 conditions?
Including the conditions?
Yeah.
We have a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second it. First and second. Ready for a vote?
Ms. Hillman?
Yes.
Ms. Polinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Croteau?
Yes.
Ms. Manous?
Yes.
Mr. Laufer?
Yes. Thank you.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Can I just make one recommendation? That the church listen to the concerns, especially of Mr. Walls with the children, and keep in mind that it is also conducive for you to put up signs and make sure that it's well maintained and that children do not make that a hangout.
We have signs up now, and there'll be more signs.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a nice way. Thank you. The final item for today is a site plan application submitted by Calvary Chapel of Vero Beach and Strunk Funeral Home to construct a new parking areas, driveways, and landscape improvements in Phase 1 and demolition of 2 existing church buildings and construction of a new 10,140 square foot auditorium in Phase 2 at the northwest corner of 10th Avenue and 17th Street. And the number on that one is SP 1500004. And before we begin that, is there any disclosure, ex parte communications on this particular item?
None.
Seeing none. Swearing in of the applicants.
If you raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
And also, is there anyone else who's going to want to speak, not just the applicants? You'll need to be sworn in,
Forgive me,
too.
then. You need to be sworn in also.
If you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Thank you. You ready to proceed, Tim?
Oh, you already? Okay. The applicants propose to construct parking facilities at 600-seat auditorium in 2 phases under a unified site plan. The unified site plan involves properties owned by Glenn and Dorothy Strunk at the northeast corner of 10th Avenue and 17th Street, and the Calvary Chapel located at the southeast corner of 10th Avenue and 18th Street. The total project site is almost 5 acres in size. Phase 1 of the project is from July through December of 2015, involves construction of 104 parking spaces, driveways, and landscaping on the currently vacant parcel A. If you look at the site plan, we've identified the 3 parcels involved. Reconfiguration of the parking lot and reduction in the number of parking spaces from 50 to 35 on parcel C, which is the Strunk Funeral Home, with the construction of vehicle access connection to the proposed parking lot at parcel A, and reconfiguration, increase in number of parking spaces on parcel B, which is the Calvary Chapel, through construction of asphalt driveways with grass parking spaces, except for the handicap parking. The needed stormwater management facilities to address the improvements for both parcels A and B are proposed for the south side of parcel A in 2 dry retention areas. Phase 2 of the project is scheduled for July 2017 through April 2018. Involves the demolition of 2 accessory buildings at the chapel, construction of a 10,140 square foot auditorium, and conversion of the existing 2-story chapel to a multi-purpose building. In attachment to B of the report, we go into detailed description of the site and how it meets the requirements. Just to kind of go over it, both the parcels A, B, and C are A and B are both C1 commercially zoned. Parcel C is a mixed use, so this is one of these combination ones again that complicates things when you're trying to review it. Parcel A is vacant right now with asphalt milling surface for temporary overflow parking. Parcel B is the church and accessory buildings, and there's approximately 80 dirt grass parking spaces there. And parcel C is 8,880 square foot funeral home with 50 paid parking spaces. Basically, the areas there to the north is a mixture of mixed use zoning. It's a mixture of single family and multiple family dwellings. West is industrially zoned, and there's a warehousing, auto body shop, flooring store, record service, animal clinic, and a variety of other uses. To the east is mixed use in C1, the Villamar condominium, and there's a florist shop. And to the south, a retail and service shops are zone C1. The site, the planning staff, as well as the other city departments, water and sewer, public works, electrical engineering, solid waste, reviewed the project. As I said, attachment B goes into detail of how the meets the development and our development standards. The proposed project meets concurrency standards required in the city code. There's a projected net increase in 63 average daily trips, resulting in conversion of the chapel to a multipurpose building and the construction of the 600-seat auditorium. It's below the threshold required for any kind of traffic impact study, so there's no issue there. The proposed site plan meets all the height, FAR, open space, lot coverage, setback, parking, loading, landscaping, and stormwater standards except for the following. Now I'll go through detail. These need to be looked at. First is the new auditorium, and I have a copy of the elevation drawings if you'd like to look at them. Conflicts with the section 6410C6 of the code. Except for specified zoning districts, no buildings over 100 square feet in area shall have an outside metal covering except for metal roofs, and this one did have a condition needs to be placed to ensure the outside facade is covered with an appropriate non-metallic material or other construction material approved by the planning director. The total on-street parking proposed for both parcels B and C doesn't meet the literal requirements of the code. However, sufficient parking will be available to serve each of these uses on the 2 parcels if they're conducted at different times, which is an option allowed under the unified site plan. And the applicant has already agreed to conditions to be placed on the hours of operation, which we cite in here. The applicants proposed to construct the site plan over a 2-phase 3-year period. Now, in most of our site plans, you do it over, it's generally a 2-year period. The concern staff has when you draw these out is codes change and all that. We're not vesting people forever and ever on these things. However, but we do need to put some language in the conditions of the approval that specifies certain times the permits have to be drawn and when the final construction can be done. As noted in attachment A, there's one additional tree. After all the trees they're dealing with their property, we found one tree that still needs to be placed there, and they'll need to install a tree. I believe they're going to put an oak tree in there. They've got quite a lot of landscaping going in, so that's it's just a minor thing, but they did it. Yes,
they've worked around those. Is that what they've done? Tried to work around those trees since they're not removing too many?
Right. Well, no, they're removing quite a few trees. But they're coming back with. There's a mitigation I'll get to that thing. They are going to pay into the mitigation fund. All right, but they are putting a lot of trees in to meet the landscaping requirements on all the parcels. The applicant is also pursuant to longstanding city policy, a sidewalk will be required to be constructed along the 18th Street frontage when the new auditorium is constructed. Okay, so that won't be needed until later. That will be done through a right-of-way permit. Will have to be granted for that, or issued for that. The applicant has submitted a title. The concern we had is we have the Strunk Zone 2 of the parcels, the Calvary Church the other. If the parcel's sold off, the staff gets concerned that we're going to lose some of the accountability. Unity title is pretty easy. They record it. They can change it. The planning director has the authority to vacate it or change it, whatever needs to be done. So it's a lot easier than subdivision. But it does keep this property under one, make sure that we don't have any splintering off, that we meet all the codes.
That becomes joint ownership? Is that how it works?
Well, it'll be considered one parcel.
But it'll be joint ownership.
Well, yeah. When you say joint ownership, the site plan is going to be under two different owners, but they both have to agree to any changes in the site plan. So that's how it is.
It's more like a deed restriction.
Yes, it'll be in the county records. And we do that. We do that routinely.
That goes with the property appraiser's office.
Right.
Yeah.
To the property county records.
Right.
And where they do it. As I said, it can be vacated by a simple action of the planning director.
But the parcel will still be owned by Strunk.
Right. They all own both parcels. Right. So, and another condition so nobody forgets about this in the future, that both owners or their successors have to approve any site plan application. So they have to be together, and they understand that.
Let me ask you this, Tim. Just if Strunk is the property owner and the church is not?
No, the church is.
Church is the property owner.
They're a property owner for parcel B.
Parcel B.
See, we have two. A and C are owned by Strunks. Right. B is owned by the church. Okay. And they want to work under a unified plan, and this is to ensure that this continues on that way.
Does the unified plan include just parcel A, or does the unified plan?
No, it's the entire, all three parcels.
So Strunk can't make a change in their parcel C without approval from...
That's the unity of title.
All three parcels will be intertwined. Okay.
That's correct.
And at this point, one or the other can't pull out. It's part of the agreement.
Well, I mean, they would have to get approval to do that, and we'd have to ferret it out. But then you get into some other complications with different zoning, and the parcels now, you have to worry about setbacks and everything else because they're different parcels. Now, when they're all in their unity site plan, you don't worry about that because it wouldn't make a lot of sense when they're all developed in a integrated type project. Okay.
Tim, can they disengage that agreement among themselves? The usage then goes away. Is that?
No. They would have to amend the site plan to break it into a separate one if that's what they wanted to do.
Approval.
They'd have to get our approval. Yes. Okay. Yes. I mean, this site plan goes with these properties. They understand what they've agreed to here. All right. And then there's a note on the bottom of attachment B on page 4 of my report. The site plan requires removal of numerous trees. The staff has informed the applicants will pay the mitigation fee required for tree removal. Almost all the trees are really inside the buildable area, so they're going to pay a mitigation fee to do that. All right. And the staff finds that the site plan is compliant with all pertinent provisions of land development regulations, subject to deficiencies and concerns being addressed in conditions to the plan. We did the site design performance standards. We had no problem with this. It actually improves the site, particularly where a lot of the parking's on millings and grass. It makes a much better site. And particularly, you get a lot of frequent users of the site. So having paid parking, I think, is a very good addition to that. So we find that the site plan is compliant with the performance standard 6410B. So based on the above findings, staff recommends approval of the site plan subject to the following conditions. we talked about that on the auditorium. They're going to need to submit, when they come in for the auditoriums, to submit a development application, a code compliance, probably the planning director, make sure that the building meets the requirements of the facade and all that, and we'll take care of the sidewalk at the same time. So it's not you're giving conceptual approval to where the building is and all that. We want to make sure it meets the code when they come back.
We're not approving the building in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you're approving that location.
Okay, that's
right.
all.
But the building thing, without making them, they could come in with but I think they're still working on it. So I think that's fine. It's still off in the future. Also, the operating hours. We have duration limits that we placed on it for Phase 1. The building permits must be made within 6 months of the effective date, and final inspection obtained by no later than 2 years from the effective date of the site plan. Phase 2, and I've got a typo here, or I have an omission. Application for the building and demo permits must be made by the end of July 2017, and the certificate of occupancy for the new auditorium obtained by no later than the end of July. It should be 2018. They have it going through April. We give a little extra time. I just forgot to put the 2018. Be a little hard to do the building in 1 month, I think.
Tim, I also wonder if you have a typo just above that.
Oh, go ahead.
On number 2,
yes.
You reference off-street parking is available, and yet you go back a page, number 2.
Oh, I'm
you're talking
sorry.
about on-street parking.
No, on-street, that's correct.
On-street, okay.
I tend to do that sometimes. All right.
Tough one.
Thank you for catching that. On 4, the landscape sheet should be revised to add required trees and mitigation trees and palms required, and they've agreed they'll do that. Unity of title, they've already submitted it. They just need to record it once they're approved. Then then I have the condition on the subsequent any amendments. And let's see, our typical thing on construction and grading, and on 7 and 8, the right-of-way permits required any work in the city right-of-way and the notice of a commencement, and last, that there will be paid the fees for the mitigation. So unless you have specific questions to me, you may want to call on the applicant.
I have one of my normal little weird questions. Under your landscaping specifications, you state that they're proposing to put in fractions of trees, like 5.4 trees, 6.7 trees, 11.5 trees, 9.4 trees, 9.2.
They all add up at the end. Yeah, they're putting in whole trees. That's how, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I asked the staff, I said, I don't do this all the time. I said, well, let's put these fractions there, but they round them up at the end.
Yeah,
we're fine.
I understand.
Yeah, but you're right. It's kind of odd. Yeah.
Yeah, when you have the western stuff, so obviously they average out on the corners, but yeah, it may average up, but it just seems kind of silly.
It does seem kind of silly. Parking's done the same way. You don't see it that they do the points, for the ones.
It would seem to make sense to round.
Yeah.
In a proper way, so it comes out, so the whole numbers, it just looks strange.
Well, actually, when they round it, it tends to up the total number of trees a little, and I asked staff because historically we've done it that way, and I don't want to change our practice unless we want to really get in the code and then specify exactly how that's done. Mm-hmm. We don't want to surprise applicants with because the planning director has changed his mind over something else.
Tim, go ahead.
I have a question about when the construction starts, the hours of the construction. As you know, in my neighborhood, we had a lot of problems with the construction starting very early in the morning and running till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And I know there's a portion of residential homes in that area, so I'm really concerned about the residents in that area being disturbed by the construction.
Okay, we do have provisions in the code of when construction start and stop. Okay. We have the villa, the condos to the east, and then we have some to the north. I will check to see what those times are.
Okay, thank you.
Because I do recall we had an issue going on there, and I'll have to look in the code to go. I don't know off the top of my head. I think 7 a.m. in the morning is the start. I just don't recall what I don't know if it's how late in the evening.
Okay. Tim, I might have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, that's all right. They're going to remove a lot of trees from the property, and they're going to mitigate those trees by paying into a fund. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, they're still going to have the necessary trees to meet the landscaping requirement. They have mitigated anything.
Yes, they kept a lot of trees on the site. So what you're seeing is really trees right where they had to do it.
I understand.
But they're having a
The
lot
site
of,
will
because
still be
there's,
landscaped in its final
they're having
appearance
put
to the
hedges,
public.
they're having put trees, every 30 feet on one part, every 40 feet on other parts. They also had to put in on the parking bulbs and all that. They have end trees go in there, so there are a lot of trees being planted.
Okay. So that's all. I thought
Yeah.
they were mitigating some of that off the site. And to
No, there's no mitigation
Still
offsite,
minimum
other than
criteria.
paying into the fund. That's
Okay.
the only mitigation.
Because of the heavily wooded area.
I was curious, looking at the operating hours that you have in here that they've agreed to have, that only one day a week they would be operating after 7 p.m. That there would not be any events or any operations going after 7 p.m. except on Thursday when they go to 9 p.m. Is that true?
The church.
Okay.
That's pretty restrictive on a.
Well, they gave me the times on that. Okay. I mean, this doesn't mean there won't be somebody in the building. Obviously, they may have some more, but this is what they gave us. You could ask the applicant.
Well, I tend to.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean,
Good point.
I asked them because one of the things I had on this whole thing is until the real crunch, not the real crunch, but the more demand is with the new auditorium. Do they want to hold up a little on some of these conditions? And they said no. So you can ask them those questions, all right?
Right.
No problem at all.
Any additional questions of the staff?
I have a question also about the parking. I just wondered how practical this restriction really is. And is the school classroom attendance and traffic and parking also considered?
It's not a school. It's a Sunday school, and it will be done during the church when they're doing it. It doesn't add to it. Typical churches, you look at their main operation. Okay, that's what because most of the time these Sunday school, they're all the parents taking the kids and they're going to church service. The kids are going to Sunday school, so they're not operating a school. I think at one time they had talked about a daycare or something, but they're not doing that. I mean, this is typically what we do in most of these churches, that they have accessory uses that doesn't go into the calculation.
And then the second question would be about the Strunk Funeral Home Chapel viewing times, which are traditionally both afternoon and evening. And again, my question really has to do with, is this too restrictive, and is it really practical?
I think you should ask the applicant that. Those are good questions to ask.
That references to on-street parking.
Yeah.
The funeral home has existing parking on their property now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
And I don't think they might have applied this themselves as opposed to some restriction we're putting.
I
on
did
them.
not put
So-
this. They had to make sure that the hours where they're having the big events, had to be different,
This
and
may
that's
be
what
more
they're
between
doing
them.
here.
Let's ask them, but it's maybe
Yes,
more
that's what I
between
mean. You
them than
need
us.
to ask them about that. I did not put these. Okay. Oh, I've got the answer on the noise thing. It's between 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So all construction work would have to stop at 7 and couldn't start before 7 a.m. How's
Start
that?
and stop at 7. Thank you.
Well,
I think,
Thank you.
Tim, the reason we're asking the questions on the operating times is how would that be enforced except between the two parties? Say there was a concurrent events going on and the parking overflowed into the surrounding streets.
well, then we'd start getting complaints and they'd be in violation. That's how we'd most likely pick this up through complaints, or we were seeing it. They're doing 2 events at some time. I think you should talk to them.
But what kind of a violation would that be?
It'd be,
It'd
a typical code violation of the site plan.
Okay, violation of site plan.
Yes.
Okay.
If it got too egregious, I would probably bring the site plan back. If we started having we have some, additional authority. If it isn't working out properly, we would try to work it out.
We have the authority to modify a site plan?
Well, if it's continuing violations, we have some discretion. It's not totally in the code, but I think what happens with these cases, you work with the property owners and you usually get to it. I get back to the community church. Most of it wasn't in the code. It was things you had to work out to be a good neighbor and not cause problems, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, funeral homes and churches are usually good neighbors, so.
Okay.
Would the applicant like to come forward now?
Good afternoon. My name is John Blum, and I'm an engineer with Carter Associates, 1708 21st Street. Also with me is Mike Ochsner with Calvary, and he could probably answer a lot of the time questions that you have as far as operating hours. I would like to add, though, that I got these from both applicants, and I think they were mainly concerned about the conflicting of the hours, not the extension of the hours. So if we could possibly maybe extend those hours so that it's not restricting the use as long as they don't occur at the same time. In hindsight, thinking about that?
I haven't had one of these once before in my life, and as long as you might want to make that agreement between the two parties and not necessarily on the plan itself. We found that to be a better way to handle that.
I think Tim requires it on the plan as far as
well, it was in a shopping center. It was the kind of thing with restaurants and theaters, and that's where it was. So,
but again, I meant in thinking about it, and I don't know if they thought it totally through. I mean, if we made the hours of operation till 9 p.m. for the funeral home, and then as long as the activities with the funeral home and the church services didn't conflict with each other, we would still be under the control of the unified site plan.
Can I ask this only refers until phase 2 is complete, right?
No, it would occur right off the bat with phase 1.
Right, but there would be no need for this after phase 2 because the church is not going. It's going to be converted into a multi-use building.
The church is existing. The chapel that they're in now is going to be converted to a multi-purpose.
Right.
So they currently do have service there.
Right.
No, the auditorium is going to be 600 seats. See, theirs were, so they have to take that into account. That's why.
So the church will be using the auditorium?
Yeah, the church is going to be converted. The existing chapel is going to be converted to a multi-purpose building, and they're going to build in phase 2 the new auditorium, which is actually the church, would be the church, the 600 seats.
Okay.
So you see what's going on? Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what my question isn't to restrict the funeral home, but more the restriction that the church is placing on themselves. In this particular community, many churches with 500 or 600 seat auditoriums tend to have events in addition to their normal services. This provides for the church to have their normal services on Thursday and Sunday. However, if they want to have a music event on a Sunday afternoon, like almost all churches do, or if they want to have other events on weekend or during the week in the evening, this would require them to ask Strunk's permission to do so.
Correct.
And I'm not sure that a church wants to put themselves in that position. That's all.
Well, I can tell you, and unfortunately the Strunks weren't able to attend today, but they were the former owners of this church site, and that's under contract currently with Calvary. So they do have a good working relationship. And Mike, if you want to.
Yeah, thanks,
Mike. On that.
Mike Oxnard, I'm the administrative pastor of the church, and we have a very good working relationship with the Strunks. And so, as John pointed out, the idea of restricting the hours wasn't because we wanted to restrict the hours, but we wanted the city to understand that we weren't going to have parking conflict. The primary driver of the need for the bigger auditorium and for the additional parking that supports it is Sunday morning, and it's really driven by the 9:30 service. We have right now 4 weekend services. We have Saturday night at 6 o'clock. We have 8 o'clock Sunday morning. We have 9:30 Sunday morning. We have 11:15 Sunday morning. And so by having a larger auditorium, then hopefully we'll be able to condense those. But as it is right now, the 9:30 is the one that's, it's shoulder to shoulder. So that's really what's driving this. We do have other meetings during the week, but we have a women's Bible study on Tuesday night. We have a kind of a one-step recovery program on Monday nights, but they're all small. They really don't drive much traffic. The primary driver is 9:30 Sunday morning. And as I say, the Strunks have been great. We're doing this together, and we even had a conversation about the only time that he really has a a need for Sunday at all is if it's a Jewish funeral, and they do that Sunday afternoons. So it's after we've already left. So anyway, I don't think that there's a problem, and I think the point is well taken that you're saying maybe we're over restricting, and it wasn't intentional to really compress what our uses were, but simply to make sure that the city understood that we weren't going to have a conflict.
I understand, and where the conflict I think comes in is that usually if you are going to have an event, you have to plan it well in advance. Funerals are not planned well in advance. I mean, they happen when they happen, and if you had a major event planned on a Sunday afternoon, for example, and you had it all set up, and all of a sudden there's the Strunk has a Jewish funeral that they have to do on that Sunday afternoon, it may cause a problem.
I don't think it would, but you're right. It's theoretical.
Theoretical, yeah. But it would be rare when it would happen.
I think that's where signage comes in handy.
What is the total parking spaces now, and what will it be? Do you know?
Well, it's sort of very, well, not sort of, it is haphazard because it's wherever somebody can find a place.
Okay.
And I think the total is going to be, you can answer it, I think it's 247 or something.
I believe it's 230
okay.
something. I don't know the quite.
Yeah, I think right now there's 50. We counted maybe 80 on the church thing, but they overflow into that other.
Right.
So there's maybe 130. This will add certainly a lot more parking to both sites.
Okay. Wonderful.
I know the parking is more than adequate for both. So
there are 239 spaces.
Okay. Does the applicant have any problems with any of the restrictions that the staff is placing on the for the approval of this?
No. As far as the architectural, we'll work with the architect. Obviously, 2 to 3 years down the road, we'll have time to do that, along with the sidewalk.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Why is it in parcel A? Why are those parking stalls not grass?
Those would be adjacent to the funeral home. So those are more frequently used, and the owners of the funeral home wanted those paved, where the church are more infrequent use, which is common with churches.
Okay, just seems like a lot of pavement.
Yeah, it's environmentally more friendly to have grass. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
But it'll be rutted if you get a lot of usage on you have rutting and everything, and that's not so good either. So their infrequent use makes.
So most of those interior trees are going?
No, not most of them. Actually, we microsited the site plan as much as we could to preserve all the trees. The ones that we really had trouble in preserving that are of value, I think, were the oaks. And most of those are in declining health. So the nice big ones we were able to preserve.
I have the landscape plan. If you would like to look at it,
I've noticed over time those trees, because I've been here 9 years and I go to Calvary, and I've watched those trees, and having all those cars on there, even if it's just infrequent, just Sundays, they're stressing now.
Right.
So they'd have to go one way or another anyway.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
If you're going to Calvary, is there a conflict situation between you and this proposal?
I've never seen the site plan before.
There's no financial conflict.
There's no financial conflict. Okay. I just question.
Oh.
I want to make sure we have it on a record that there's no conflict.
Okay. The new auditorium with the metal outside, was there any issues there? That's not, we don't address that right now, is that correct?
I'm sorry, what's that?
On, I guess it's number 1 item there. It says new auditorium is proposed.
Well, they have a metal outside, and it's not, our code doesn't allow that in this zoning district. Across the street in the manufacturer or the industrial zone, you can do it.
Okay.
So normally what we suggest, unless they want to go to another building material totally, and they still have an architect, it would come up with some facade that would be non-metallic facade that they could put.
You're okay with that? Okay. Yeah. Good. I was concerned there. All right. Anybody else? Additional questions? Mr. Cahoy, you okay?
No, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Everybody all right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, we'd like to open up to the public. If you'd like to come up and speak, please do so. You're last but not least, okay? Or maybe not last either. I'm not sure of that either.
My name is Ann Doucette. I live at 835 18th Street.
Pardon me, did you say Angie?
Ann. A-N-N-E.
Okay.
In the Villamar condos.
Okay.
So we're abutting the property.
Okay.
I have some concerns and some requests that I'd like to talk about today. One of the first ones is the dust during construction. I'm hearing that this is going to be a year and a half, but did I also hear it might go 3 years? I'm not sure.
Well, it's not going to be continuous. It's a phased project. So the first will be all these parking improvements will be done as the first phase, generally. And then the building itself, which is right up to the north part of the property, the new building, that will be in phase 2, which will be a couple of years off yet.
So we would like to request that some additional things be done to keep that dust down. I understand that you can either wet it or put some materials down while that's being done. Thank you for bringing up the hours. I'm a little concerned about construction going 7 in the morning to 7 at night. We would like to request that the construction vehicles do not go on 18th Street. If they could come in from another area. 18th Street's mostly residential. And I'm unclear about how the trees, what trees are going to remain. We have several trees in front of our condos that provide shade, cooling, and privacy. They're right on the lot. I think one of them is maybe a banyan or something, I think it's called. I'd like to know whether those are staying or going. We really have a concern about that as well.
Are you just to the east of
Yes.
the existing? Okay, you're south of 18th.
We're on
the
18th.
south side.
We're on
Yes, they're
18th.
right in here.
Yeah, but north or south side of the street?
I'm sorry?
North or south side of the street?
South, I think.
Yeah.
South and east.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're right on their lot line.
Right.
We can look down into the parking lot and
Okay.
at the church.
The big trees along that side, yeah.
While they're pausing for a moment, the dust you're concerned with, there will be some dust, but mostly in the when they're moving the dirt and things, which after that you're going to get mostly noise, not so much dirt, okay? Because once it's filled in landscape, that quiets it down somewhat, and then they'll be using a paved site then to build with, usually on their own asphalt and et cetera, and they move the things on and off. So your concerns will be mostly noise and hassle. That'll be the two things you'll come up with more than dust after a while.
I agree with you, but I think there is going to be a period of time where we're going to have a lot of dust.
For sure.
And, that's all, those condos are all open on that side.
Where do you think the dust is going to come from?
As they're digging up and leveling and taking trees out. And
Especially if it's a dry time of year. If it's wet, you get mud.
It is a concern.
It is. It should be.
Do we have codes that cover that, Tim?
We'll have to get a permit from DEP. It's a construction permit to eliminate or to reduce off-site pollutant discharges. And I can tell you this county is very proactive in policing that. So we'll have to maintain erosion control devices to limit any type of off-site turbidity, discharge, and dust.
Isn't there a type of barrier, like material barrier that could be put up along that area?
There'll be a required silt fence that goes around the perimeter.
Okay.
It's only 3 feet tall, though. Yeah. It's not going to stop any.
You can't extend that a little higher than that area?
Physically,
toward
not
that
without
area?
a fence to hold it back. Okay. It's just not structurally sound. But we'll make sure that we put that we control and that they water the site if it is dusty. And the site work part should go really quick, so hopefully you're not inconvenienced for long.
Thank you. And the trees?
And the trees, I'm looking at the landscape plan right now, and I would say most of the trees are preserved along the common property line, specifically up the northern end.
Yes.
There's a 48-inch oak that's being preserved, a 16-inch oak, a 12-inch oak, the banyan tree is being preserved. It's all the way down near the Strunk site where there's just one cabbage palm being removed.
Okay.
And that's surrounded by 3 very large oaks that we've preserved also, a 36, a 28, and an 18-inch oak.
Okay, great, thank you. I'd also like to request the trash receptacle. Right now, it's up, I believe, northeast of the property, which is residential, and the property is surrounded on about 2.5 sides with either retail or commercial. So we were wondering if we could have it moved to more of a commercial, not in the northeast, take it out of the northeast.
Mike, you object to looking at that and seeing if we can find a better location?
That's not our trash.
No, we have a dumpster that we added.
We do.
Right.
That's not where she described it.
I thought we saw it.
Are you talking about the proposed dumpster?
Yes.
Yeah.
The proposed dumpster.
Up in the northeast corner. We can look at possibly putting that in the northwest corner off of that. Okay.
Okay, that would be great.
That would be more adjacent.
Will we have to make that as a...
You want to make that a condition?
We have to make it a condition.
We'll make
then
it a
if we-
condition.
Oh, great.
If you're saying to us now that you're going to do that, it'll have to be a conditional, the
I
approval.
think that makes sense.
So it'll go over where the playground is.
I think that makes sense.
It would be immediately west of the playground there.
Now, what we need to have is the access of a trash removal truck, and I don't see any. Yeah, it's a one-way.
It's a one-way, so they'd have to go out.
So you might have a difficult time getting a trash removal truck in there if you move to that section. I should consider that before you agree, I think.
Well, I mean, if we can just agree to relocate it.
Relocate it. We're going to have our solid waste people because this is under the city.
Yeah, right.
They'll look at it, so we'll take care of it. Just say it to remove it from a location away from there.
Relocate, yeah.
Relocate it.
So it gives a little flexibility that we find appropriate place for
Is
it.
that appropriate for you and you?
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
I think it's a pretty good accommodation.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
these are requests.
Okay.
So we got the trees, we got the trash, the dust you're going to do. Anything, the 18th Street entrance, can they come in from other directions, either the 17th Street or down 20th or up, rather than have them going up 18th?
Are you talking about construction or
10th
permanent?
Avenue.
Construction
Construction.
vehicles.
Construction vehicles, maybe on 10th Avenue.
I think they're coming in on 10.
Yeah. Usually that's kind of determined during construction when we're with the builder. I mean, right offhand, I don't think that would be a problem, but I hate to commit to it and then find out because of some type of construction access for that building that we'd have to go off of 18th.
Could I make one comment to you? Sure. One of the things, you're going to have a continuation of services at the church during this construction period, so your flexibility is going to be down somewhat. Mm-hmm. You have to keep it open for services and at the same time construction vehicles.
Right.
And they're going to interact a little bit during the week.
Right. So that's why I'm a little hesitant on fully committing. I mean, I don't mind possibly when they select a contractor meeting with you at that time and then kind of going over schedule.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And I mean, both streets exit off of Route 1.
Right.
So that there's a block in between there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That was it, right? I covered everything?
Did you?
I think you did pretty good.
I think he wants to. The lady that left, her husband had an appointment. She is the board president for Villamar Association. But you have to be sworn in.
I'm David Faulkner. I'm her brother. And I also live
Jerry, he needs
at
to be
Villamar.
sworn in.
Yeah, he needs to be sworn in.
Were you sworn in?
No.
Okay. Do you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm David Faulkner. I also live at Villamar. And my unit is all screened in, and it faces about right in the middle of the church area. And I'm concerned that about the dust and everything when they're working. And is there any material going to be removed from the site other than the demolition, the buildings?
Well, the demolition, they'll have to remove the trees that are being specified.
But demolition for the actual taking down the accessory buildings.
Correct. Yes, they'll
It's
be.
all got to come off the site.
Correct.
So you're going to have trucks going in and out there. That's my concern. Plus, you got concrete trucks coming in and out. So, and if you're removing any material from site, so basically there's going to be a lot of traffic going through there causing dust. And, if there's something, I think that's going to be an issue, and that's why I would like the entrance being on another street other than 18th. Yes, 18th. Okay.
Well, I mean, like I mentioned before, I don't know, without talking with the contractor and getting their staging plan and their mobilization plan as far as where they're going to be able to access. And so I'd like to probably meet with you after that contractor is selected.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, thank you. Is there any additional questions of the applicant or
I have a question.
staff? Go ahead.
I also have a concern about the construction dust and general construction going on next to the condominium project. That property line is pretty close to the condo project, and for them to be exposed to that, I'm wondering if a temporary fence with shelter, not necessarily a silt type material, but something like that, be temporarily constructed to mitigate some of what they're talking about. I've seen the construction fences on a temporary basis.
Yeah, they're about 8 feet high, kind of
Yes.
what you have on tennis courts
Yes.
with the windscreen on there.
Yes.
I don't think that's a problem, but
Is the dust going to rise and it's going to settle,
Right.
as opposed to blowing necessarily? I mean,
the key for dust is to keep it wet,
Moisture.
moist. Right.
Yeah, and that's what if I was the homeowners living in that adjacent area, that's what you have to do. When the dust gets bad, you have to call them, and they have to go out and they dampen the site down. Otherwise, no matter what you put up there, I don't think it does much to help you. 8 foot high doesn't stop anything, as far as unless it's snow. But
Sir, you'll need to come up to the microphone.
yeah, if you're going to speak, you have to speak from a microphone. Come on, David, just come back up again. It's okay.
If the contract uses a lot of water, they'll keep the dust down. Or a lot of times in New England, we use calcium. We spread
I
calcium
understand.
down. So, I mean, it's a matter of management.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
A good contractor will do a good job. A poor contractor will do a poor job.
Well, it also costs money to do that.
But I understand. Good contractor do the right thing.
Thank you.
One of my suggestions would be that prior to the construction, after you do select the builder, that you do meet with the neighbors as the church did and designate one contact. We had one contact for the neighborhood association to contact if there was a problem at all, instead of one neighbor or a group of neighbors trying to run all over and find someone that they could talk to and get answers. There was one contact, there was a telephone number, and everyone had that number. They were able to call that one contractor, the boss or whatever you call, of that job. The foreman, correct. Thank you. Sorry. But that is a good suggestion to put forward for the neighbors, because that did waylay a lot of problems that the neighbors had, because we did at first with a lot of the construction workers. They were just throwing their lunch containers all over the place, and we were picking that up, and we finally had the meeting, and we had one person who was the contact, and it was perfect. There was no problems trying to contact anyone. So I would suggest meeting with the neighbors, with the contractor, and getting all this down. And I suggest that the neighbors also have one contact that they could call instead of different phone numbers being associated with the foreman.
Sure.
Okay.
I agree.
This may not be as difficult for the neighbors because of all the existing trees. That has a way of keeping it down also. And with luck, it might be raining.
Adding the 12th condition, wording relocate trash receptacle away from the northeast corner of parcel B. I would recommend that that be incorporated with the other 11 staff recommendations and recommend approval of site plan.
And if the chair could just close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing, forgive me.
I always forget about that.
That's my fault.
And I made the motion. Does everybody understand it?
I did.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, John.
All right.
It's about the stormwater area in the central area.
Mm-hmm.
How deep is that?
It's 2 feet deep.
2 feet. And then there's a walk.
Correct. Yeah, both retentions have kind of a walkway in the middle.
Is it between them, or is it goes down and up? And
It goes. There's a culvert underneath it, and then there'll be like a berm flat area, so patrons don't have to walk all the way around the parking lot.
I just was thinking maybe, could kids use that for like an open space area? But it's not
I mean,
wet?
for recreation, since it's shallow.
But it's not wet, yeah.
Possibly.
Okay.
It's dry, but usually pretty damp.
Oh, it's dry.
But it's
dry. It's grass, and sometimes
this site, the water table's really deep, so
Oh, it is?
anticipate.
It'll be dry most of the time, probably.
It'll be dry most of the time.
What was the 12th recommendation?
Moving the dumpster.
The 12th
Okay,
recommendation
yeah.
was relocate trash receptacle away from northeast corner of parcel B.
And was there a second to that motion?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'll do the appropriate language. We normally say revise the site plan
Whatever.
because once the chairman signs that, we want to have it all, any corrections done on the site plan itself before he signs it.
Okay, we have a first. Do I have a second?
Have a second.
Second. Any further discussion? We're ready for a vote then, please.
Mrs. Hillman?
Yes.
Ms. Polinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Coteau?
Yes.
Mrs. Manous?
Yes.
Mr. Laufer?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you very good luck.
Thank you.
Wish you a lot of luck. Okay, back to the original agenda here.
All those plans.
Planning, everybody all right? You don't need any breaks, girls, you all right? Ladies? Well, I shouldn't say girls, ladies, okay. And,
Females?
come on, just cut me a break. Planning department matters, any additional?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
I saw the notice posted for our next meeting.
I
That
was
was in the
just going to
paper
ask.
today.
Oh, okay. I don't get the newspaper. Sorry.
Right. We have a conditional use in Miss Hillman's neighborhood.
When's that?
When is that meeting?
It'll be the 9th of April, right? That's the first Thursday? Yeah.
April 2nd.
No, I thought there was an April
Oh,
2nd.
April 2nd. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of
April
the
2nd,
council
okay.
meeting, yeah.
So, and that's going to be
Thank
here or there or?
No, it's going to be here. It's
At
going to be a
1:30.
public, yeah.
At 1:30.
1:30.
Regular meeting. Oh, okay.
It's a regular meeting.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
a,
yeah, that's
Regular
okay.
schedule.
That's
it's
fine.
a quasi also?
It's a quasi, yeah.
Gotcha.
Anything, Tim, nothing else?
No, that's all I
Okay.
have, yeah.
Any board member matters?
Yeah, I have two. First is there was a lot of backup here regarding land uses, and that just brings up the subject matter again about, do our uses differ that much from the counties? what's permissible within certain.
Well, no, some of our classifications are very similar. Okay, if you're when you say land use, you're talking about zoning.
Yeah, allowable.
But we also have a lot of ones that we need to get rid of eventually. Because
is that you POIs in particular?
Well, POI is some problems with it, but it has some validity if you make some brief. But we have like the hospital institute. We have things we don't need anymore, and a couple others that we have too many zoning districts, to be honest with you, that we really could get rid of some. But that's a longer process. But we are pretty when we have an annexation coming in. And normally they'll have at the corner of 17th and southeast corner of 17th and US 1 that Amico and the Asian restaurant, that property, that's going to come in, and they usually want comparable zoning. So like commercial CG in the county.
Is that CG in the county?
Yeah, it's commercial in the county. And so we have similar zoning districts,
but they're not
in the county. They're not all the same, though. No. And we tend to have a little higher density in our residential than the county does, and we're urban.
We're city.
Yeah,
we're city.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the applicant who's asking for an annexation, if we agree, does he have to agree to adjust to our zoning standards?
Well, when they annex, you have to come under our regulations. We have to do a comp plan change and zoning.
Right.
Okay, so basically they found that ours is more favorable than the county,
which is why they want to come in,
and that's why one reason they're coming in.
Yeah, that's what happened last year. We had one.
Right,
we had
one
right
along there.
Along same street. Yeah,
right. And you remember they at the time they wanted to take in that station, but they couldn't. Right. So because they were going to take in the Asian restaurant, but it was going to create an enclave, so we couldn't do that. So these owners, the people who are going to buy this property are going to bring both in. So and there's some territorial problems that the police have had on traffic. This will take care of that problem too.
Good, a lot of positives.
It really is it's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Tim, the other thing I had about is providing notice. They went to such an effort to document the notice that was provided with the Church of Christ that we saw our second item today. And people just aren't reading the newspaper. They're not seeing it. And I think providing notice in a newspaper is just failing us trying to reach people.
All our site plans that come before you go 500 feet to property owners. So and mail. So if they're a property owner, they're going to get it, and if they have a neighborhood meeting, they're going to get it ahead of time then. So we do a lot more than a lot of communities do. We also post property.
Yeah, that was the question.
There's only so much you can do,
and even if somebody misses, their neighbor got it, and if there's any concern, they're going to all talk. Yeah. I mean, my neighborhood.
Yeah, I think we do a good job, and we do it way out 2 weeks ahead of time. I mean, I think we do a very good job of that compared to other communities.
I think you're correct, though. A lot of people don't read them in the paper. They're just they're boring. That's why if you don't look.
People aren't reading the paper,
right. And that's why we don't rely on the paper. We were required to do it in the paper. We don't rely just on the paper.
If you live in the neighborhood, when I see the site little sign in the neighborhood, that's what draws my attention to the important thing.
And we post on every frontage on every property. So this property had 3 signs up.
Staying on this line, I was going to ask Ms. Lyon Peggy if it would be permissible for me to send a neighborhood email without discussing, just putting the date of this meeting here without making any other discussions, because I know a lot of my neighbors do not receive the paper. A lot of them relied on me to send an email during the time that I was president to receive and go to all of these meetings, the P&Z meeting we had at the church and so on and so forth. I'm asking, is that something that I'm permitted to do now that I still have the neighborhood list?
I think that we talked about this just before you went on the Planning and Zoning Board, and I think that we agreed that it would be better to distance yourself from those meetings.
All right.
If there's someone else in the neighborhood that could step into your shoes, as you were properly telling the gentleman before, if you had one person that everyone could rely on to get the word out, who's not probably on the Planning and Zoning Board in a quasi-judicial status, I think it would be better.
Okay, thank you.
Have we ever posted these things on the website? That these are
Well, we have
rezonings and
we post our community. We have the community calendar, so you get the agenda, everything on the website.
Yeah.
But I mean, we do a pretty good job out there without.
Oh, I
going
know.
out.
I'm not being critical, but
I know.
it's harder to reach people these days.
Oh, I know it is, but you know,
I'm just looking to see how can we do that.
I think we do a very good job at that. And people are disinterested. You can't make them.
How many years ago was it that we cut down the notice from 1,000 feet to 500 feet?
No, we never had 1,000 feet.
In fact, we went up.
We went up. We were at 300 and we went to 500. Yeah. And we did a lot of time. And back then, when we changed it, when we did rezonings, we didn't used to post or. So, I mean, we've changed it so it's much more open to citizens.
dating myself because
input.
I do remember when it was a much wider notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's so much that people aren't aware, because I think Tim's right that there's plenty of information out there in various forms. It's I think a lot of people don't have the time to come in the middle of the day to a meeting. Or the people who are working.
When was that meeting that?
They usually do them at the neighborhood meetings are at night. They have to be at least at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So the people that are working. But a lot of these people could be snowbirds. You hear they're getting a notice sent up to New England, and they may be down here. But only so much you can do. Okay.
Yeah, that one was at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, the letter that went out on the Vero Beach Church of Christ didn't have a time. Oh, there, 6 p.m. It was a 6 p.m. Okay.
Is there any additional business for today?
I got one more question to Tim. Tim, why don't we see the landscape plans any longer? We used to.
You do, if you would like. I put them. I have them here for you to look at, but it's hard to see them unless you get it at the large scale. So, but if you would like them in there, this one there was a. It took me a long time. He was laughing. He said, "Thank you for the quick." Well, I want to tell you.
Yeah,
when you got 100 and some plants and all this, it takes a while to go through there because we have all very detailed requirements and trees and all that. So it took a while to go through different color pens and all that. But we'd on these where we'd put those in there if you would like.
Okay,
that's the only thing. I had them available, but certainly if you're of interest, we just have to make sure they're shot. We normally require them to give us a reduced version of it, so we can send it over to Public Works to get it. But you can see even the version you have there. Sometimes they're real hard to unless you have the full plan in front of you. So
I get it. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
No, that's why.
A question of Peggy. Anything of interest to us in Tallahassee you're following? Maybe giving us home rule back?
There is so much of interest in Tallahassee that I'm following. I sent Tim, I don't know if you had a chance to look at your email today, that private property rights.
You said that's moving through?
Yeah, that's moving through, and that's a really unusual. There's an awful lot. In fact, I think I should probably bring it back at the next meeting because there's a lot involving planning on tap this time.
Yeah.
None of it really particularly good. And so Tim's analysis would probably be very helpful in that regard, but there is a lot of change afoot.
There's no
comprehensive
momentum.
Planning and DRIs and in possibly putting in a private property rights, and I may not say this right, Tim, but it's like in your comprehensive plan, having a special section just for that you have to run through and make regulations for, that as you've seen how hard those kind of issues are, if you have that in your comp plan, you could really throw a wrench into some items.
Well, what kind of bothered me is
very different.
The way the language was stated in there. It's like the comp plan's not good enough that you're supposed to come up with strategies beyond what a comp plan does,
Yeah.
which I thought was not an understanding of a comp plan. We have to follow due process, the statutes, property rights. I mean, that's fundamental in this country. We're not here. Peggy and I are when we discuss regulations and all that now,
We're very careful.
We're very careful about that in following cases.
You got
So
Bert Harris
why
right back
that's
of you.
needed, I'm not really certain, other than maybe there's some rogue community out there, and that gets a lot of the people all excited, you know.
I shared it with the county planning staff too, and they were equally.
Yeah.
But to see today that was passed some huge amount, barely anyone opposed to it, and I can't remember if that was Senate or the House, but it appears to be getting some traction and some legs. So I'll make copies of it. Tim, if I gave those to Tracy next week, could she send copies to the members? Just to
Well,
take a look?
actually, Sherry, she'll do it. Sherry's
Okay.
the one that'll,
Yeah. Okay.
Do you need
Emailing
paper
is
copy?
fine.
Just an email? Can you
Yeah,
email a copy?
just an email.
Yeah. Tim, what's the status of the subdivision proposal for the
the one out
big
west?
one? Yeah.
Haven't gotten it.
Haven't
I
gotten
mean, people have called about it. I haven't heard anything. I heard they're still discussing some changes in it.
Referring to Dodger Pines?
Yes, the old thing, and that's as much as I know.
So you haven't received anything yet?
I have not received anything, no.
When do you expect that, you think?
Well, I expected something soon, but you
Right.
never know.
I'm asking. You heard about it a couple
It
months
goes
ago.
on. I mean, I've gotten
It's
a
like
couple
it dies and
complaints
comes
out
back.
there about people doing stuff. We've sent, code's been out there, but I haven't heard anything more. In fact, Carter and Associates is involved with it, so you just.
Well, you missed the opportunity to ask him. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if he would say anything.
It kind of fades away, and then all of a sudden it's back on the front page again. You know?
I know, yeah.
I don't understand that.
Okay.
Did I hear something about baseball team possibly coming in? No, not at all.
No.
Okay.
I was going to
Thank
say
you.
if you.
Thank you.
About what coming in?
Baseball team.
Baseball team.
Yeah, anybody, there's not coming in.
I thought
That'll be
in the wind, I heard someone say the Montreal Expos were thinking of coming here. but-
Oh.
If they are, they're only using us as a lever to get
Bait.
something
I've
someplace
been through
else.
that with the Orioles.
Okay.
Oh, I want to
The Orioles did that very, very effectively.
The county's made it very clear that they're not interested in baseball.
Right.
Oh,
We're
there
doing
you
better off without them.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, we're Dodgertown much more active year round now than they ever used to be when it was
Yeah.
when the baseball team was
They
here.
have been talking about commercial air service.
That would be
which
nice.
interesting.
Yeah, now that's.
That would be. How about the airport plan? Do we have plans for the? Are they working on?
Yes. Go ahead, Jim.
It seems like
Getting
we're a
commercial
commercial
air service.
airport now with the number of jets.
No.
Passenger.
We actually about the fifth busiest airport in the state.
Right.
Actually, with no commercial.
With
We're
no commercial
busier
flight.
than Melbourne.
Right.
But the answer to the question is that the airport commission has authorized the airport director to look into air passenger service. There are three airlines that would be interested in, because there's this study that was done for the airport master plan, which is still in the preliminary stages, but it showed the number of tickets purchased in our service area and how those flights go to Washington, D.C., New York, and up to Boston. That New England and that eastern corridor is really an important corridor to us. And airlines such as JetBlue may be interested in doing that. And I know in St. Lucie County, where they actually have designation as an international airport, outside of the drug hauling, I'm not sure what else that covers, but it's still an international airport. And they have talked recently about doing that too. And their new county administrator is sort of familiar with those airports since he came from Brevard County. And their director attended the last airport master planning session and indicated that he might be interested in working with us, where we might take some type of passenger and they would be more interested in freight or some other type of, FedEx or something like that might come in. So those discussions are taking place, and I know Eric is very hot and heavy about this, so he would love to get some indication. He's already got in his mind how you would set it out for the security, and we would have another terminal and that kind of stuff. So it's one of those that you've got to have enough that convinces a carrier to invest that much money to put an airplane here. And we want to make sure that, unlike in the past, I think when we had airline service before, from what I'm being told,
It was really never intended to be long-term service. The type of service they put in here, you could tell that they were parking an airplane and just flew it when they could find passengers. And by going from here to Miami was not a real corridor. It's like running 32 trains a day. I mean, you wonder.
Nobody
some
on
people create
Give me a break.
the demand, I guess. So. No offense to my railroad friends.
Phantom riders. Is our runways long enough to
Yes, it is.
accommodate?
Yes, they are.
We have the pretty good sized jets landing now, right?
Yeah, we have an aisle and a half runway.
We
We're
really
fine.
are very, very fortunate because when the Air Force had it, they maintained it extremely well. Well, when the Dodgers came in, the O'Malley family made sure that their plane could land, and so we inherited a very well-maintained airport. And Eric is obviously, with his history, he knew exactly what needed to be done, and he and Todd have done a great job making sure our runways and our taxiways are in place. And in the master plan, we're showing some improvement to our taxiways in order to be able to accommodate virtually anything that would want to use our service.
Did I hear you correct saying we have the 5th most active airport where takeoffs
It's
and
either
landings?
the 5th or the 6th in the state, takeoff and
state.
landings. Yes, in the state, and it's like 200. We've exceeded 220.
Is a lot of those because of the
Flight safety.
Flight safety, you get a lot of touch and
Okay,
goes.
the touch and goes.
Touch and goes. Touch and goes.
And the
Flight
good thing
safety.
about flight safety is they're not as high in demand as they were before, but they're moving in the right direction, which makes them a very good corporate partner out there. And then you tie that with all the jets that we're now getting from the seasonal visitors that are coming.
The Johns Island Air Force, yeah.
Well, we were here when they ran passenger service around Florida. Our daughter went to school up in Tallahassee, and that was a very convenient flight for her to take. And friends coming in from different states would come here too.
Yeah, and I think, didn't they run less than 18 months or something? It was a relatively short period of time.
I don't remember.
That's what I'm being told.
Yeah.
And they had allocated one aircraft down here, and sometimes there was a dependability issue. But that's something that will be an issue in Vero, is that we're very seasonal. Yeah. Although now, if you look at tourist tax and all these other things, our season is expanding. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that an aircraft carrier would look and say that, this has not only the site right now, but potential into the future. So.
Is there demolition coming on the Vero Beach Hotel? All kinds of, they put fences up around it and things.
Yeah, I assume until I heard, I knew what they were going to, I didn't know exactly what they were going to do. I've read it in the paper, but they haven't submitted anything. They don't normally have to come through us for a demo.
Probably county, that's county.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, not on demos.
Not a zoning, yeah.
One question I had at the last meeting or so when we approved the sign for the Hampton Inn, that sign is hidden behind a tree.
I know.
Are they going to be taking the tree down, trimming up the tree?
No, they haven't. They probably would trim it. They haven't.
Said they were going to prune it up.
They're going to prune it up.
Yeah, they're probably going to prune it up because you're right. It does kind of block.
Hidden.
We don't want anybody to see our signs.
That's obviously.
We have a very strong sign ordinance.
I know. I understand that. Well,
this
one certainly meets that criteria.
Cover over the sign. That's part of.
That's right. Part of the deal is you cover it up. I went by the other day. Oh, the sign's good. Hey, you can see it coming from the west, but you certainly can't see it coming from the east.
Oh no, they put it there.
I know they did. Right behind the tree.
I assume it looked like they could trim it.
They could trim the tree up.
If
Yeah.
it isn't trimmed, it's got to be somebody.
It's the funniest looking thing. As far as
I know.
It's an interesting investment.
Any additional items?
How about we adjourn?
We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.